Study. We go at the Crown Life Bible Study, we go in after God's word. So tonight, Caleb Code. We're diving into the life and legacy of Caleb. If this is your first time here, want to know who we are as it relates to King's Kid. King's Kid is a faith-based education development company. So we are committed to equipping individuals with the tools to help them amplify their impact through personalized training, tailored Bible teacher like tonight, the Kingdom Career Collective workshops, and our group where we do life together. And every now and then we dabble into some coaching and workshop experiences. So we're excited for all this work that God has trusted us with. We don't take it for granted, not one bit. And we thank you for trusting us for a place to be as your spiritual, getting fed spiritually and being in community as we're advancing God's kingdom. My name is Tiezra Knox, and literally it's all things crowned here. It's all things crowned. I love living a crown life. If I can't wear my crown, I typically just don't participate in it. That's typically how I go. My crown, that's my mission, and I'm committed to that. So I'm gonna give an overview because I don't want to assume everybody know about Joshua. I don't want to assume, we read it or anything like that. That's a Bible study is a Bible study, and we're going to study. Like that's literally what we're doing. So when we look at the purpose of Joshua is to show how God was faithful to fulfill his covenant in giving Israel Canaan. Canaan is the promised land, and the participation that was required for them as they make this conquest. There's no author that's really specified. Very, very possibly it could have been Joshua, with the exception of the end that would have been written by particularly a high priest. As you read through Joshua, key places you would see: Jericho, Ai, Mount Ebal, Mount Gerizim, Gibeon, Gilgal, Shiloh, and Shechem. Those are some areas that you will see throughout Joshua. Now, we want to talk about Caleb. And we had to do some studying with Caleb's lineage. The first time I studied Caleb, I actually got his lineage wrong. So I had to go back and make it right and figure out where did I miss the mark. So remember Father Abraham? Remember Abraham? Father Abraham had many sons. How many sons had Father Abraham? Rock with it. I'm one of them. And so are you. Okay, so we all went to VBS, right? Okay, so I have Abraham. He's the father of Isaac and then the grandfather of Jacob. So Abraham, he's known as the father of the faith. God made a covenant with him, promising him numerous descendants in the land. That's in Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 to 3. Isaac is Abraham's son. Isaac was the child of the promise, fulfilling God's promise to Abraham. Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac was born. In Genesis 21, that's where it tells us this is where he was born. Fast forward to Genesis 22, it tells the time where God actually tested Abraham, telling him to take his son, his only son, and go into the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt as a burnt offering. And God said, I'm going to show you. And then we have Jacob, right? Jacob is Isaac's son. Jacob's story includes wrestling with an angel, and then his name was later changed to Israel. This is in Genesis 32. Jacob had 12 sons. He had 12 sons. This is the part of the story that kind of tricked me up, and I couldn't find Caleb lineage. So Jacob had 12 sons. These 12 sons are actually listed in First Chronicles chapter 2. Caleb has a tribal affiliation through one of Jacob's sons, Asher. The tribe of Asher, it was named basically after the patriarch. That's who the tribe of Asher is. And Asher, he's one of the 12 tribes of Israel. So in the King James Bible Dictionary, in First Chronicles chapter 7, verse 38, it states that the chief of family warriors in the line of Asher. That's what it states. So that's how we were able to trace back Caleb's lineage. Now, We're going to keep going a little bit. In Numbers 13, this is where the Lord tells Moses to send one leader from each of the tribes from Israel. Numbers 13:6 specifically gives context on who Caleb is and where the tribe that he's from. Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, was the tribe leader from Judah. And then we find ourselves in Joshua 14:6. It says, Caleb, son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite. This is where we will start. Joshua chapter 14, verse 6. As I stated earlier, I'm reading from the New Living Translation version. Whatever version you're reading from is perfectly fine. We're not married to versions. We're married to you experiencing God's victory through his word. Okay? So let's dive into this. The Caleb overview. So in Numbers 13 and 30, I want to give some context, and we're going from Numbers to Joshua because we're just doing some cross-referencing so we can understand where Caleb come from and more of his character. So when you look at Numbers chapter 13, specifically in verse 30, it says that Caleb tried to quiet the people as they stood before Moses. Let's go at once to take the land he said we can certainly conquer it. Now, that's in the middle of some things. What happened before that is they had explored the land for 40 days. They explored the land, they returned to give a report. They report on what they had seen. They showed the fruit that they had taken from the land. They said, it produces great fruit. The land is definitely flowing with milk and honey. But then there was a but. The people living there are powerful. Their towns are large and fortified. We saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. They live here. Amorites, Jebusites. They live in the hill countries. The Canaanites, they live along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea and along the Jordan River. That's Numbers 13, verses 25 through 29. And then we find Numbers 13, verse 30, where Caleb is like, y'all, we can go take the land. Like in the middle of that. Now, after that, after Caleb says this is what happened. But, another but, the other men who had explored the land with him disagreed. They said, we can't go up against them. They are stronger than we are. So they spread this bad report about the land among the Israelites. The land we travel through and explore will devour anyone who goes to live in there. All the people we saw were huge. We even saw giants. They're the descendants of Anak. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers. And that's what they thought too. So between verses 25 and 33, there's only one verse that's saying we can actually go conquer it. And who's speaking and saying that is Caleb. That's who's speaking and saying it. So when we fast forward to Joshua 14, verse 6, delegation from the tribe of Judah, led by Caleb, son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite, came to Joshua at Gilgal. Caleb said to Joshua, remember what the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, about me and you when we were at Kadesh Barnea. Y'all, out of the 12 men Moses sent to spy out the land, only 2 returned with an honest and faith-filled report. Caleb teaches us about conquering as the minority. That's what he teaches us. He teaches us how to conquer with our belief as the minority. We live in a majority rules. We live in the majority rules, whether it's elections, whether it's, different votes. We're in prom season, so you have the prom queens and the prom queens, and you have, I think American Idol still operates that way. Typically, we live in a majority rules, but from a biblical standpoint, we learn what it means to rule and reign as a minority. I want us to understand that not everyone you encounter, they will have the spirit of belief. They will believe. It can be hard to understand, and we could be thinking, how can you not believe? But it's a reality. Some people may enjoy your post about Christ, but feel no fulfillment in studying God's word. They may love you and appreciate the work you do and still have no desire to study or be submitted to the God that you serve. They may love your light but want to neglect the source of your life. And in these moments, it's important for us to remain open to understanding that we're built different. Our belief is built different, and our belief is far beyond us. We're rooted in a father that came, he sent his son to die for us. We rooted different. We're not built the same. That's why you shaking and riddled full of stress, and I'm over here having peace within the middle of the storm. Some people may enjoy the stories you tell and not even realize that the stories you tell are rooted in a savior that came for you. They will never get it. They may never get it. Caleb also conquered low level thinking with low level people who lack belief. And I'm sure as I'm saying that, you're probably thinking about somebody who's a low level thinker, and they probably wear you out. And I'm looking at the facial expression. Caleb teaches us what it means to have foresight when it comes to our faith and being in this thing for the long haul, the long haul. As I stated earlier, we operate with the majority rules. And what Caleb teaches us is just because the majority rules, Caleb and Joshua, what they both teaches us, just because the majority rules doesn't mean that the majority is always right. Just because they're ruling doesn't mean they're right. This happens in culture, it happens in corporations all the time. It happens. Whether you're in church, it still happens. We live in a fallen world, so we're not going to get it right all the time. But when we're talking about being right, we're talking about being right with God, living a life that's righteous and standing on our courage and convictions. So the question that I have for you, has there ever been a time where you felt like you were in the minority, but you also felt right too? And how did that make you feel? And how did that propel your faith? Yes, no, maybe so. What we thinking?
Can you
Okay.
repeat the question again?
Have you ever been in a position where you were the minority and you knew you were right? And if yes, how did that propel your faith to go forward, to stand strong in it?
I can't think on top of my head if I was in that situation, though.
Um,
I can't think of anything.
okay. You probably because we've
I'm
had
not saying let me put it this way. I don't recall.
uh-huh
Not saying that I didn't. It's nothing that's coming up to my top of mind at the
right
moment.
now.
Right, yeah.
It probably happened in somewhere in your career. And I'm just saying that based off our last conversations. With a previous manager, it probably happened. Yeah, it probably.
Um, yeah, yeah, oh goodness. Yeah, because
She said, "Oh
technically,
goodness."
yes, because technically I was the first one to really go speak out first in a sense of really addressing it with higher level. And now, even now, especially what's going on with the new manager and seeing that we wasn't doing things efficiently as an HR compliance team, it just goes to show that technically, I can't say that I did things always the right way, but my concerns was I felt was accurate because I felt like not only this woman, she's, how can I say this way? She's just not really in the center. She's left, not only that she's, you know, has a bad attitude, managerial style, does not agree with the team, not open-minded, like empathy. Not only that, but she didn't know HR compliance. Like she was operating in the spirit of give or take arrogance. It was like talking to, like literally when I talked to her, I literally seen a red brick wall. That's really what she was, just impenetrable, hardened. Um, and even with that, based on my concerns, now I can see that I was right in informing them that she wasn't supposed to be in that role because she
Mm,
didn't have the knowledge, didn't care to seek the knowledge, didn't care to develop her team to the
mm,
point where we wasn't operating efficiently as an HR
efficient.
compliance team. And now by me doing back work with the audit and everything, it just shows now that I literally I was accurate.
And your accuracy, it didn't come, it's not coming from a place of arrogance. It's like,
No,
I
no, it's
know that this is something's not right here, y'all.
yeah, because even
Yeah.
now with the current manager, she's looking at me now, and I'm saying, looking at myself, okay, her concerns is valid because I know me and Teodra have been talking, but it's like, I totally feel like which I was in a way set up for failure, and now it's just, it is what it is, and gotta at
Mhm.
least try to do the job at the best of my ability now. But it was, yeah, it was just, it's not coming from a place like, aha, granted, it did kind of make me mad in a sense, but it's accurate.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. I guess you. Yeah. Definitely. I have been there, and just speaking from experience, I've been on the place, I've been on the side to where I was accurate and arrogant. And that didn't work out too well for me either. So you definitely have to, like, I love when you talk about it from a space of humility. And I feel like I'm just getting there. Cause don't try to play me when I know that I know that I know. Like, don't do that to me.
Now,
Don't,
yeah,
yeah,
I'm still at work because
yeah,
it would kind of be different if she was around. Then you
right.
get something else, but honey, I'm working on that too.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So the thing is we're in community, right? Like, and we'll continue to work on it together. Like, know that you're not in alone in this. So, yeah, we're gonna pick up at Joshua chapter 14, verses 7 through 9. So this is Caleb speaking to Joshua. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to explore the land of Canaan. I returned and gave an honest report. Here's another but my brothers who went with me frightened the people from entering the promised land. For my part, I wholeheartedly followed the Lord my God. So that day, Moses solemnly promised me the land of Canaan on which you were just walking will be your grain of land and that of your descendants forever, because you wholeheartedly followed the Lord. At 40 years old, Caleb returned with a report, and not just any report, but it was a quality report. It was an honest report. The quality of the report matters. The quality of the reports that we give, it matters. It's not just about data. It's not about what everybody else was saying. It was what he believed, he trusted, and he was willing to stand on it, even if that meant standing alone. Verse 8, it actually give a contrast of the postures, right? So Caleb posture, he like, I followed the Lord. And then you get to verse 8, and it tells the posture of the brothers. Be careful when fear is projected up on you. People will innately have their own fears, and then their fears are projected upon you. 10 people had a fear that, oh, we won't be able to do it. And an entire generation believed the report of 10 people. That entire generation had to die off before they were even ever able to enter the promised land. Out of 12 spies, 10 came back with a negative report, 2 came back with a positive report. The 2 that was able to enter and conquer the promised land were the 2 that had the honest report. Where are the other 10? Baby, they have taken their staircase to heaven. Caleb took responsibility for his report. He wholeheartedly followed God. When we look back on our journey, can we say the same thing? Can we say that we are giving an honest report? Can we say that we're wholeheartedly following the Lord? Us wholeheartedly following the Lord, it's truly a representation of who God is. When we look at verse 9, it's about remembering the result. As a result of Caleb wholeheartedly following the Lord, he asking for his land. And he asking in verse 14. We didn't get to Joshua 1 and Caleb like, yeah, what's up? This is my land. Like we 14 verses in. When Caleb is getting his land, this is actually the fulfillment. This is a fulfillment of Deuteronomy 1:34-36. It states, when the Lord heard what you said, he was angry and solemnly swore. This is Moses talking to the people. No one from this evil generation shall enter the good land I swore to your ancestors, except Caleb, son of Jephunneh. He will see it. I will give him and his descendants the land he set foot on. Why? Because he wholeheartedly followed the Lord. So Caleb wholeheartedly following the Lord belongs in the same sentence, because that's what we see consistently. What is consistently being seen in your life? What's the fruit? When we mention Caleb, we can see he wholeheartedly followed God, because almost every text that I have read attached to Caleb's name somewhere in the vicinity is where he wholeheartedly followed the Lord. Consistency isn't a sexy word. However, whenever you are consistent, it reveals your character, it sharpens your competence, and it deepens your confidence. Caleb was confident in the report that he gave. And his confidence wasn't in himself, his confidence was in God. We have a responsibility individually and collectively. We can't nobody go without being held accountable. This promise wasn't just attached to Caleb. It was attached to his descendants. So we're in this culture now, oh, I want to break generational curses. Well, what are the generational blessings that was passed on to you? We all have some. Let's think about this. Imagine a grandfather who planted an oak tree. The first year his child was born, every day, rain or shine, he watered it, tended to it, protected it. Even when storms bent the branches or the drought threatened its roots, others moved on to faster growing trees, laughing at his slowness. But he kept showing up. Years later, that tree became shade for his grandchildren to play under, and the strength in his family leaned on this during difficult seasons, not because he rushed it, but because he remained consistent. We cannot be so nearsighted that we neglect and we neglect, not just neglect, but we forfeit certain promises that God give to us because we're in a rush to get whatever it is that God has for us. What's for you, it will not miss you. God has been a block for you. He'll spin a block for you. Joshua 14, verse 10 and 11. Now, as you can see, the Lord has kept me alive and well, as he promised. For all these 45 years since Moses made this promise, even while Israel wandered in the wilderness, today I'm 85 years old. I am as strong now as I was when Moses sent me on that journey, and I could still travel and fight as well as I could then. This is a moment of rejoicing for me personally. The man said he 85, alive and well. 85, alive and well. God is a keeper. Not only is he a keeper even in the wandering. He didn't say even while we wondered. He said even while Israel wondered. I'm in it, but I ain't of it. And although I had to wait 13 chapters to get it, I'm still here. And not only am I still here, I am as strong now as I was when Moses sent me on the journey. His ability to remain committed through decades of delay. We get mad over months of delay. This man had decades of delay. The promise still stands, y'all, even if the path feels long. In the book I read, it's a book called Draw the Circle. The author Mark Batterson, he shares this concept of praying, no longer praying ASAP prayers. So no longer praying prayers of as soon as possible, but praying prayers of as long as it takes. And when I first read that, I was like, that's a little risky because what if God is like, you're gonna see it in heaven, not here? And I'm just like, I kind of want to hear though. Like that could be a very risky posture to take. What I started to realize, the prayers of as soon as possible, they made me anxious. I was not present. And on top of that, I wanted the thing. Like I wanted whatever it was that I wanted. So I wasn't really after the heart of God or the character of God. Now the prayers of as long as it take, I'm like, all right, God, how long? However, comma, I noticed my posture is different to where it's like, I actually thought I want that, but not really. Like, I want you. I don't want this without you. And I noticed that my character got better on the as long as it takes. This is character building, y'all. A lot of the things that we're experiencing, a lot of it's just associated with character building. He's building our character. He's building our endurance because there has to be something that differentiates his people from the culture. Caleb defied the mentality just because you're old doesn't mean you're weak. God sustained his strength. When there are seasoned professionals in the workforce, they're still able to operate at a very high level and they provide wisdom and strategic insight. That's equivalent to Caleb. Caleb's longevity is not a liability, it's a leadership asset. And when either in the church or either in corporate spaces, we understand that longevity isn't a liability, but leadership assets. We position those people properly to be able to pour into the next generation. There's a man at my church. Every time me and my husband see him, we always go up and get prayer for him. Now, him and my husband, they worked together back in the day. And now that, me and my husband married and all the things, the man, I think he's in his 80s. I think he is in his 80s. And the one thing that he tells us all the time, you all are an example to me. This man played for the Dallas Cowboys. This man, he was an executive throughout his career. And he's telling us we're the example for him. He's an asset. When people see him, they hug him, they love on him, and he's excited about seeing the next generation of leaders to rise up. He tells us that all the time. Joshua 14, verses 12 to 13. This is Caleb asking, so give me the hill country that the Lord promised me. You will remember that as scouts, we found the descendants of Anak living there in great walled towns. But if the Lord is with me, I will drive them out the land, just as the Lord said. So Joshua blessed Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and gave Hebron to him as his portion of the land. In verse 12, Caleb requests It reflects not only his enduring confidence, but the kingdom-like mindset. He recalled what was discovered in the past, and he takes God at his word, remembering the promise of his presence as he boldly moved forward. So it wasn't so much about the land, but he was like, if the Lord is with me, I do what the Lord said. It was the presence that Caleb continued to pound on. He was consistent in his faithfulness to God. He had confidence in his ask because he knew that I follow God. I did my part. And if God is with me, I ain't worried about no giants because guess what? They all got to come down. The giants will not be there. We're going to drive them out. Caleb was able to conquer not because he was dependent on his own power, but he was dependent on the presence of God. The present was the present. Joshua blessed him with the land that was already promised to him through Moses. The land was already his. The land was already Caleb's. This moment reflects a powerful truth. Sometimes we must boldly ask for what God has already promised. When we think of Caleb, he reminded Joshua of the promise made to him decades earlier. He didn't assume it would come. He didn't assume it would be handed down. So we know that there are promises that are rightfully ours, but we feeling some type of way. We ready to nook and book when we have not opened our mouth to say, give me what's rightfully mine. He spoke up and he claimed it. The same thing that goes in our lives. We may be standing on promises, if it's peace, if it's purpose, if it's provision, but our faith-filled request activates the reliefs. So we have to boldly ask. Faith-filled, we have to ask, give me, insert what the Lord has promised me. So whatever your insert is, give me, insert what the Lord has promised me. A faith-filled ask, not being timid. If you know it's yours, then boldly ask for it to be yours and for it to be given to you. Joshua 14, verses 14 through 15. Hebron still, I'm telling him, I'm still, he's still, we still. It still belongs to the descendants of Caleb, son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite. Why, y'all? Because he wholeheartedly followed the Lord, the God of Israel. Previously, Hebron had been called Kiriath Arba. It had been named after Arba, a great hero of the descendants of Anak. And look at this little part. And the land had rest from war. Every decision we make in faith, it's like a seed. So when we choose to follow God, we engage in a divine process of planting, watering, sowing, reaping, harvest. That's what it leads to. It leads to a harvest. And that harvest is used to bless the generations beyond our own. We not only have the result, but we have what was attached to the result. These descendants of Anak, these were the giants who inhabited the land before Joshua's conquest. And it wasn't just about the descendants. So it wasn't just about, hey, this is for you and your people, but it was about the environment that was created. There was rest from war. I don't know what we're warring. Everybody have their own different wars that they're navigating in the world. But Hebrews 4 talks about that there's a rest for the people of God that still stands today. And after a long day of work, I just want a good nap. I need a little nap. I need a little rest and all the things. Don't forfeit the rest that God has promised to you because you're seeing giants or because others are projecting their fears on you. Ask for what you want because you don't know what else is attached to it. So at this point, y'all, the man promise had compounded. Not only was it for him, it was for his descendants, and then he had rest. That's not by accident or chance. That's the peace that when God gives something that's for you, that's rightfully yours, and it has your name on it, and it's an inheritance, there's a rest that comes with it. And that's just how good God is. So I want to talk about the difference real fast, the difference between Caleb and Anak. Caleb, from the tribe of Judah. Anak, he was the forefather, the descendants of the giants, basically. Caleb, one of two faithful spies who believed Israel could take the land. Anak, he was the ancestor. He's the ancestor of the giants who intimidated. Whatever your Anak is, whatever it is that's intimidating you, I want you to know that if you go with a faith-filled ask, if you wholeheartedly follow God, if you're giving the right report, you can drive it out with the presence of God. That's the Caleb's code. Symbolism. Caleb represents faith, perseverance, inheritance through trust. Inheritance through trust. Anak, obstacles, fear, opposition to God's promises. Caleb, his legacy received Hebron as an inheritance for his faithfulness. Anak, his descendants, guess what? They were driven out and they were defeated. So, y'all, what's the Caleb's code? Like, what's our recap? The quality of your report matters. The quality of your report matters. Someone recently was trying to hold me accountable for something that I said. And what I said, I wasn't wrong. I literally ran it back. I literally ran it back on what I said and how I said it. And then after I ran it back, I said, hey, y'all, we have to learn to stop being so defensive, because when we are defensive, it allows us to have hardened hearts, and we can't see past what others are saying. So we think people are attacking you, and ain't nobody attacking you. We're just giving you a recap of what happened. And you, in your mind, you think this makes sense, but in actuality, to the user, it doesn't make sense. And although I was, in a sense, slapped on the hand for what it said, I laughed. I laughed because the elders, they were like, yeah, what you said, it make a lot of sense. The report you gave, it was a correct report. And then the elders told me this, keep getting in good trouble. Now what I'm supposed to do with that? I got the people that I work with, they like, oh, you're doing too much. Your reports are wrong, or they're projecting fear on me. But I have the elders that's been in the game. They're like, yeah, keep getting in good trouble. The quality of your report matters. Whenever you're consistent, it reveals your character, it sharpens your competence, and it deepens your confidence. Understanding that God is a keeper. He's also a keeper and one that expands your capacity to fulfill whatever the conquest that you're assigned to. Confidence in your ask comes from being faithful to the Father and wholeheartedly following his word. We can't boldly ask God for what we want because we have haphazardly followed him and haphazardly obeyed what he said. So if you're haphazardly all the way or most of the way, it's hard to pull up to the throne and be like, hey, God, so you told me this and I want this. Conquering isn't dependent on your power. It's never about your power. It's about God's presence. It's always been about his presence. When we look at scripture, anytime we saw people conquering things, from Genesis to Revelation, anytime you saw somebody conquering something, you automatically saw that they were dependent on the presence of God, because the presence gives you the power to overcome. But you can't have your power without his presence and then expect to prevail. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. It haven't worked like that, and it won't work like that. So I'm gonna give you all, I'm gonna actually open up the floor for us to talk, do some